for having us here today to present the Judiciary's FY25 budget. So is the microphone on, Ms. Zitter? Good enough? Okay, okay. My name is Mary Russell, and I have the honor currently of serving as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Missouri. And I have an honor today to be in front of you. I feel like I know everyone here, so that's a wonderful honor for me. As Chief Justice, it's important for me to come personally here today to present the budget, to show my respect and my appreciation for all the hard work that you do in making these difficult decisions. Here with me today is Betsy Abishan, who is the clerk of our court, our state court administrator, Kathy Lloyd, our deputy court administrator, Rick Morrissey, and our budget director. Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah, it's okay. Change seats. Julie Miller. Also, I want to point out Eric Jennings, who is our government relations counsel for the court. Our clerk, Betsy Abishan, is going to present the majority of the budget this morning, but I wanted just to call your attention to a couple of our funding requests. First off, obviously, the court cannot do its job without the thousands of employees in your districts, your constituents that carry out the duties in our courthouses around the state. They are the faces of the court for the many people that come to our courts on a daily basis. And as you know, the judiciary budget is only 2% of the total general revenue of our state, and 80% of our budget is salaries. And it's very important to keep these salaries at a level that is competitive for other occupations within the districts. We are very supportive of the governor's recommendation for the 3.2% increase. And we thank you for past increases for salaries for our employees over the years, and we support this increase again this year too for our employees. Part of the things that I'm doing right now as the Chief Justice, I'm traveling to various districts around the state, and I'll let you know when I'm going to be in your area. But yesterday I was in Lincoln and Pike counties, and I know Senator Fitzwater is not on this committee, but one of the things that we have in our budget, and it was reiterated to me yesterday by the juvenile officer in Pike County, is the need for more juvenile detention centers. So the juvenile officer pulled me aside and said, I wake up in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. worried if there's a juvenile who's committed a heinous crime. I have no place to put him. There are no beds. Typically, they would try to send juveniles that need to be detained to St. Charles. St. Charles is not taking any more juveniles. They're full. And this is a real common thing that I've heard all around the state, is that we need more juvenile detention beds. So I think Ms. Abishan's going to go into that a little more in her presentation. To wrap it up, because I know we're on a tight time frame, there are a lot of things that I can't talk about because of the oath that we take as judges and the ethical violation or constraints that we have. And so that's why I'm going to turn the budget over to Betsy Abishan, because sometimes in these hearings, legislation or pending or impending matters before the court could come up. So thank you for your consideration of our budget, and thank you for your hard work. And I will turn it over to Ms. Abishan. Thank you.
All right, good morning. At the request of the chairman, I'm going to go through our new decision items, and I'm going to start on page 3. Our first new decision item is due to the Citizens Compensation Commission, which is in the Constitution. It's the commission that sets the salaries not only for judges statewide, but also for statewide office holders and members of the General Assembly. When we submitted our budget to the governor, we did not know what the feds were going to do. Federal judges trigger state judges, and so we put in a placeholder at 5.2. We're now hearing that that number is going to be 4.6, so our request will go down from 3.37 to 2.9, and we'll get those numbers to you. On the next page, page 12, is our new decision item for the marijuana initiative money under the Constitutional Amendment 3. We are allowed to request marijuana monies to reimburse courts for our costs. What our costs are this year is we still need some money for overtime and special assistance dollars for out to the circuits. We are at a stage where they're going through paper files, not electronic files. It's incredibly work intensive. We are also asking for some postage and supplies at $160,000, and then $1.5 million for some security upgrades that we will need to keep those records safe that have been expunged. Moving on to page 18, this is the NDI. There are certain family court commissioners, et cetera, that are tied to judges' salaries via statute, not via the Constitution. We only pass this on if we get the appropriation. Again, we submitted it at 5.2. It's going to be a 4.6, so this number will go from 334 to 295. On page 26 is the court reporter, NDI. The legislature has passed a bill the last couple of years changing the salaries for court reporters. We treat this money just like the commissioners since it's statutory. There's a legal argument over what comes last, and when there's a legal argument, I do my best to defer to the General Assembly. So what we have asked for is all of the money for the court reporters to hit all of their marks. That's the cleanest way to handle that, but I think the governor recommended only for those individuals that would hit it this year. So just know that if we continue in this way, which is fine, there will continually be a lag so that court reporters will hit that mark and will not get the money until the money is appropriated next year, if it's appropriated at all. So access to civil justice interpreters on page 31. This is something that a statute says an interpreter will be provided, but it doesn't say who will pay for it, like we've seen with the criminal interpreters that you all have given us the money for in the past. We always make you aware of this. There is an executive order under the federal government that says we should pay for it, but our statute doesn't, so we don't. We have received a letter that we submitted to you all a few years ago from the Department of Justice about a case in San Genevieve, but if the feds ever came in or investigated or looked at it, just know that we could very well run afoul of the law on that. I'm just making you aware. We have two really big asks this year. If you're familiar with our budgets, it's not something that's normal for us to come with big decision items, but these two things are incredibly important to the judiciary and are different. They are very high FTE counts too. I recognize that that is usually dead on arrival. Just know that we believe we would not come to you with this if it was not of the utmost importance, and we are more than willing to work with the judiciary in phasing something in or being creative or collaborative. And the pretrial is one of those. We would like to start a statewide pretrial program. Right now, we have pretrial in certain circuits where they might have gotten grants to do it or where counties have paid for it. It is, but we would like to provide this statewide, much like with our treatment courts, so that where you live geographically does not determine what kind of criminal justice procedures that you get or care. So what we would do is, based upon workload, put pretrial administrators in each circuit, and then we would submit a PSA or conduct a pretrial screening on everyone arrested. And there is, as our data and our numbers get better, there are valid tools that we can use that are better predictors of what individuals are more likely to commit crimes while they are out waiting for trial. Remember, these people are innocent until convicted under the laws of this country. So what we would do, and there would also be a supervision component to that. So it's not just like, hey, they're out running around. There would be some supervision that is related to that. So it is a big ask of 152 FTE and 10 million. I want to come to you with solutions as well. There's currently 5 million in the Office of Administration for a pretrial program that if we could move that to the judiciary's budget and then allow us to use some of the opioid settlement monies, I believe there's the monies there to cover at least the dollar amount, because we could give an opioid screening at the same time that we do the pretrial assessment that would make us eligible for those opioid dollars. Moving on to page 50, juvenile detention. The Chief Justice mentioned that briefly. We have had a couple of big changes in juvenile law that has affected our detention centers. One being to raise the age. The second being the change in certification. Detention facilities now have to hold juveniles until after, they used to be that they would certify it and then they would go to adult jail. Well, that does not happen now after a change in the law. So we are holding more dangerous children for longer periods of time in the same facilities that we are holding younger juvenile delinquents. And this has caused a safety problem for the current places, and it's also caused an end to beds freedom because beds are not moving and flipping over as quickly as they were. So this is also another big ask of nearly $6 million, 3 components to this. One, we have 2 juvenile detention facilities that have the capacity to have more bed space if we have the funding for the staff. Under our standards. And so there's a portion of that is dedicated to Just in those facilities, the 13th and the 26th, that's the Lake area and Columbia, increasing their bed capacity so that we could hold more kids statewide. The other two pieces of that, one is for security contractors, because this is a more dangerous level of child, and keeping them separated from the younger youth, and then also mental health contractors, mental health providers in each of those facilities, not just the two we're wanting to expand.
Thank you. I'm just curious, statewide at any given moment, how many kids, juveniles, do we have that qualify as these dangerous type of juveniles?
I would probably have to get that number to you just off the top of my head, but I'm happy to do that.
Is it in the dozens?
How many of these more dangerous types of juveniles are in the facility at any given day?
More than a dozen who've been certified who are being held present.
But we can get the numbers to you of who's certified, who's pending certification of some of those more dangerous felonies. Thank you, Senator. All right, no questions, then I'll be moving on. Page 55 is the governor's pay plan, of which we are very grateful. There have been years where only certain members of the judiciary have been given statewide pay raises, or there's even been a year where the judiciary employees were cut out altogether. I would just remind you, these are the faces in your courtrooms, and if we could just be treated as other statewide employees, we would greatly appreciate it. This number also includes for these juvenile staff the 1% for those who do the 24-hour care. So the next few pages are what we had submitted for our 21st Century Task Force. For those of you who are familiar, that's the pay plan that we had done individually because we're not part of what the OA pay plan is. But we would defer to the General Assembly on whichever one that they would choose to give. And those go through pages, I believe, 105. Going to page 111, there were law clerks that were added to the Southern District last year. They were added at a higher salary than current Western and Eastern District law clerks and Supreme Court law clerks. And this is just the number that would bring those salaries up equally across all of that. As the economy is good, law clerks get paid more. If you're hired by a big firm coming out of law school right now, you actually get paid more than a Supreme Court judge. So that just sometimes makes, we want the best of the best, and it makes it a little more hard for us to recruit from that. If you look at library renovations, you all were so kind last year to give us money for library renovations, which would be a museum/learning center, discovery center for all the students who come through our building, much like they come through yours, and for a building restoration. That was put in our E&E dollars, and OA is not allowing, for the library restoration, we were not able to get bids in a timely way to get that done for this year. So we would like a reappropriation of that money. We've done the things that we think that we can to make a bid more viable and more timely. The second piece is the building restoration was put in our E&E, which OA has not allowed us to access since there was no capital improvements monies. We've been capped at like $50,000, which is just, it's hard for us to get any projects done of any measure with that amount. So we would request that it either be put back in our budget with capital improvement language or put in the capital improvements budget with some language to give them some direction on that. Page 129 is a replacement for our federal 4D. Several years ago, when Senator Schaefer was the chair of this committee, we had a 4D fund that had accrued a balance of roughly 10 to 12 million. He asked us to spend that down by putting some FTE into that fund. We have done that, and to a point now where that fund is not manageable for some of the things we need it to be manageable for. That's where we run a lot of our grants out of, because sometimes you have to prepay and then the grant reimburses you. So that's what that is for. Page 134 is municipal support. You all kindly gave us half of our request, I believe, last year. Once courts, said, hey, municipal courts are courts, and you have to walk like a duck and quack like a duck and all those things. It's more than doubled the number of courts that we service for bank reconciliations, help desk requests, et cetera. And so as we now have all municipal courts, we just finished that, getting the two largest ones onto our statewide system. This would be the other half of what we need to adequately help those courts do what they need to do. On page 140, last year you all gave us security for the Southern District Court of Appeals. If you've ever been in there, you literally get off the elevators and you're basically in the courtroom. The governor vetoed that. So we have asked for that again. And then page 145 is a treatment court commissioner for the 39th. Under our workload, they have qualified for that, so that is the request for that. And then in our supplemental on page 155, that's the court reporter increase for just 3 months that we discussed earlier. On that, there was one of those I wanted to go back that we were shorted.
No, $50,000 on the FY25.
On the FY25 for the court reporters, that amount that the governor recommended was actually $50,000 short of what we actually submitted and needed. They indicated that they would be reaching out to you all to correct that mistake, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And then a third of that $50,000, of course, for the supplemental. If there's no other questions, those are our NDIs.
Thank you, Betsy. Are there any other questions from the committee before we move on? Doesn't appear so.
All right,
Thank
happy
you.
to meet with
Appreciate
anyone
it.
individually. Just
Appreciate
let
it.
me know. Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, Mr. Auditor. We're trying to figure out how many retired senators are in the room and whether we give them deference over the auditor. Can you? All right, you're up. We'll do the auditor. Sorry, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. Scott Fitzpatrick, State Auditor. This is my second year before you, but this is the first budget that I'm responsible for having submitted for consideration by the governor and the legislature. So I'll jump right in. Page 7 is the pay plan that the governor recommended. We are supportive of that and defer to you all on what you decide to do there, obviously, but appreciate the governor's consideration for state employees. Page 11 is our core. This is all the employees of the auditor's office, salary. The vast majority of this money is to pay their salaries. We have travel expenses because we travel to audit sites and as part of conducting the audits. But the vast majority of this is salaries, $10.16 million. And then page 23 is a new decision item that basically I talked to the committee last year about this. You guys approved an NDI for us that was vetoed, and the governor was, we spent the interim trying to work with the governor's office to help them get all the information they needed from us to understand why we are needing this money. And it really comes down to the salaries that were in the budget book and that were compared to what were actually being paid when I took office in January of last year they were not the same. The budget book salaries were much lower, and so we took office. We had 160 FTE budgeted, but we only had funding for about 110 FTE, and so this will allow us to staff the office back up so that we can address the increasing amount of audit work that is required, largely due to the increased amount of expenditures that have come along with all the COVID money and other enhanced federal matches on Medicaid and things like that that have driven up the expenditures on several federal programs, making the single audit work and the statewide financial statement audit work a lot more time consuming. So that is our budget book. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? My recollection is essentially we did a little realigning on the salaries and making them a little more transparent in what folks were actually making in your office. Is that not?
Correct. Yeah, we
What
didn't
we're
change
trying to
any
do last year.
salaries.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't change any salaries. We just updated them and based on what they were making when we got there. The only changes have been the pay plans that you guys have approved. So it was just based on what was happening was they were losing people, and they were using the vacancy money to increase salaries to keep from losing more people, and as a result, we didn't have money to fill the vacancies.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Thank you, Auditor Fitzpatrick.
Thank you.
I think we're going to jump to the Tax Commission. If you all are ready, that's the smaller of the blue books with revenue. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Senator.
Hey, Senator, how are you?
Good, you?
Good. I feel like this is homecoming. You're the
I know. You guys
homecoming king, homecoming
I don't
queen
know.
sitting here.
I don't know about that. Keep up the good work. Whenever you guys are ready.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Gary Romine, Chairman of the State Tax Commission. With me today, I have Commissioners Victor Callahan, Debbie McGinnis over here, also our Office Administrator, Stacy Jacobs, and our Legislative and Policy Analyst, Dan Hutton. Some familiar faces around here today. The Tax Commission is a constitutional agency charged with the responsibility of administering and have oversight of the statewide property assessment program, which generates $10.2 billion annually in local revenues. I want to emphasize local revenues. The local revenues generated fund 2,832 taxing districts in the state of Missouri, which includes public schools, approximately $7.67 billion to 518 public schools. Also funds local government and other political subdivisions such as fire departments, ambulance services, road and bridge, and community libraries. We also provided a handout for more detailed information on what our agency is about. At this time, to keep it short, I will turn it over to Ms. Stacy, our Office Administrator and our budget professional.
Good morning, committee members. Our first NDI starts on page 402 of the second blue budget book for Department of Revenue. This is the governor's pay plan. And then the only other NDI we have is on page 422. It's to increase the reimbursement fund. The governor recommended $50,000 for the increase in the parcel count to the 23 parcel count. And those are our only NDIs.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee for our tax commission? Doesn't appear so.
Just call us short and sweet.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you guys being here and the work that you do.
Thank you very much.
If you
Appreciate
need anything
it.
from us,
Appreciate
you know
your
where to
time.
find us. Thank you.
Punching that field goal.
I think we'll move on to the Department of Revenue. If Senator Wallingford, now Director, is ready.
Mr. Chairman, honorable committee members, I'm Wayne Wallingford, the Director of Revenue, and on January 3rd of this year, I celebrated my second anniversary in the Department of Revenue, and with me today I've brought Amanda Bolin, who will be presenting the budget, and my subject matter experts as well from each division, and we'll be presenting the FY25 budget. And it doesn't seem like that long ago I was sitting where you were on appropriations, and know how busy you get and flooded with information, and that's why my DOR team prepared this for you. It's a good overview. It's for you to look at when you get back to your office and try to crystallize all the things that we presented you today. I'm going to just cover a few brief things in that before we get into the big book, because on page 4 of that, you'll see our FY25 budget. We're requesting $84.5 million and 1,119.55 FTE, and you'll notice we've compared it to the last couple of years. We're very steady. I'm very conservative. I don't like a lot of change, and so we're pretty much the same as we've been in the past. And then on page 8, we have our FY25 new decision items, and then on pages 5 through 8, for quick reference, we list some of the notable new decision items, some of that being the cost for U.S. Postal Service. They've already increased the postal rates 3 times since I've been over there, and they promised one every year at least. And then the Senate Bill 398 that you passed last session for funds to begin our uninsured motorists. And then also on the remaining slides, you'll see for the calendar year 2023, our customer service improvements, and our vision is to provide every customer the best experience every time, and that's what we work on every day over there. And also we have the integrated motor vehicle driver's license system. That was Senate Bill 176, passed in the 101 General Assembly in 2021. That funds the Motor Vehicle Technology Fund. And Fast Enterprises is the company doing that, and the driver's license system should come out in November of 2024 of this year. I think we're shooting for around the 12th right now. And then the motor vehicle system in July of 2026. And if it comes out in the 11th, that will be my birthday present. So we've also improved the license contract renewal process, and we've given them estimated bid dates, because when I first went over there were a lot of backlogged license offices, and they didn't really know when they were going to come up. There were a lot of extensions, so this allows them to see when they'll be coming up. And also our compliance program, because there was no way to really grade them as far as their performance unless you called me and said what a great job is happening, or maybe what needs to be worked on. So we've come up with a GO grid, a general operations grid, that can grade each one of those license offices and improve their scores. So with that, our Department Budget Administrator, Amanda Bolin, will begin with the new decision items.
Thank you, Director. My name is Amanda Bolin, as he said. I am the Budget Administrator for the Department of Revenue, and let's continue on to the NDIs. So turning to page 8, you will see the first decision item for the FY25 pay plan. The FY25 pay plan includes 3.2% statewide pay increase for employees. This is the same across all agencies. Moving on to page 27, we will talk about the new decision item for License Office Closure Preparedness Fund. This is funding to cover up to 2 temporary state-operated license offices across Missouri and to outfit a mobile license office that could be deployed when offices are shut down. The governor is recommending $856,000 of E&E. Moving on to page 34 for the SAVE program. This is funding to cover the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to use for the SAVE program. This is electronic verification that is mandated for the Real ID Act of 2005 in order to maintain the compliant Real ID document. The governor is recommending $39,084 of E&E. Moving on to page 41, the new decision item, uninsured motorist. This is for Missouri's Motor Vehicle Financial Responsibility Enforcement and Compliance Program. This was established by Senate Bill 398 in 2023 session. This is for core funding to pay for the selected third-party vendor. The implementation of this program will align with the current Motor V system modernization and integration project. The governor is recommending $299,895 of 104 for PS and 195 in E&E. And that is all the new decision items for highway. Now I'm going to hand it off to Cheryl Boss, who will present the division for tax.
And while she's coming up, for the record, I'd just like it to be noted that I am turning in my witness protection form.
All right. Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. Again, my name is Cheryl Bosch. I'm the Division Director of Taxation. Taxation did submit one NDI, which was not recommended to be funded by the governor. This was an NDI for 5 new full-time positions at the tune of $241,000. And this was to support the increase of tax credits that we've seen come through the department. They require a little more manual effort to review those returns. I'm going to now, any questions for taxation? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to motor vehicle driver's license.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ken Strump. I'm the Division Director for Motor V and Driver's License. The next NDI is on page 152 for our ignition interlock device program. The governor recommends $93,000 of E&E funding for this. We use this funding to update our driver's license with the IID. We reconcile with our vendors on our IID, making sure we've got all those records. So that's what we're asking for there. Completes my presentation. Next, we'll have General Counsel's office.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Dan Follett. I'm General Counsel for the department. We had one new decision item, which you'll find on page 183, which was for updating our fleet. That was not recommended by the governor's office. I am pleased that they did include some that in their House Bill 20 with out of ARPA funds for this year. So that's all I have. I'll turn it over to Josh Schopp.
Good morning, members of the committee. I am Joshua Shope. I am the Division Director of the Administration Division. We have two NDIs. The first NDI is on page 202. It is the Movers Implementation Resources New Decision Item. The Governor recommends $82,501 FTE to assist the department in its transition to the financial, budget, accounting, and human resources jobs in Movers. Our next NDI is on page 212. And it is the postage rate increase. If you guys don't have any other questions or any questions, I will turn it back over to Amanda for refunds and distributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, now moving on to refunds and distributions, as you stated. We're going to move on to page 249, new decision item, motor fuel distribution. This is Senate Bill 262, increase the current tax rate from 24.5 cents to 29.5 cents on July 1st, 2025. This additional tax is collected and distributed among the cities and counties. The governor recommends an increase in authority of $231 million. Okay, now moving on to page 264. We're going to go to GR refunds. This is an increase for GR refunds appropriation that has allowed the department to continue refunding individual and corporate income, property tax, withholding, sales and use taxes, and other GR refunds as required by section 136.35. The governor recommends $33 million. Okay, moving on to page 314. For the new decision item of debt offset transfer, the governor recommends $17 million to cover an increase of an average of 31% over the last 3 years. In fiscal year 23, the department exceeded the appropriation by $8.6 million. We anticipate an increase for fiscal year of 24 to $28.4 million. Okay, now moving on to page 360 to the income tax checkoff transfer. This is for individuals and corporations entitled to a refund that may designate a portion to credit of various charitable trust funds. This appropriation allows the department to semi-annually distribute the collections to appropriated charitable organizations. The governor recommends $14,000 to cover the increased projected donations for fiscal year 25. Now moving on to our last NDI, which is the motor fuel highway transfer on page 376. This is an increase of appropriation authority for the motor fuel transfers allowed to anticipate increased transfers to the state highways and transportation department. The governor recommends $155 million for this. And that concludes our NDI for Department of Revenue.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Any questions from the committee? Doesn't appear so. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director.
Thank you.
You ready? All right. Let's do the Department of Transportation. Might have been a minor oversight by the chairman this morning. I think the lottery is in the back of the Department of Revenue's book. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just questioned whether or not I was punishing the lottery for some reason. No. The answer is no. We'll get right to you, I promise. Sorry about that.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee.
Morning.
Glad to be here, and thank you for your service and support. We will be brief, since I know your all's time is important. Just a couple quick things. Again, my name is Lester Eller, Executive Director. To my left is Judy Martin. She's the Deputy Director and Chief Financial Officer. Of course, our mission is to support Missouri education, support Missouri businesses, and entertain millions. 100% of our money goes to education, which is 4% of the Missouri's budget for education. Just a couple quick notes, and then I'll turn it over to Judy. Our current operating budget is, or administration of the fund is 3.2%, which is the lowest in the country. The average for lotteries are 6.9%. Sales in FY23 were $1.8 billion, which was the second largest in the 38-year history. We transferred $425 million last year, which was the largest in the history of lottery. To date, we've had over $8 billion transferred to state education. And one thing that I thought was interesting, because I've only been here for about 1 year and 3 months with the lottery, but I had no idea how many millionaires that we created. We've had 685 millionaires since lottery was established. We had 45 last year, and 7 so far this year. So made a lot of impact for some folks. But if there's any questions or not any questions, I'll turn it over to Judy Martin and let her go over our NDIs.
We are in Book 2 of DOR, and we only have 2 new decision items. The first one is on page 437. This is the governor's recommended pay plan, $280,916. And the only other one we have is on page 459, which is related to the pay plan. It's the transfer for operations for the pay plan and the related fringes. And that's all for lottery.
Any questions for the lottery? All right. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, and thank you for not punishing us. So.
You bet. Sorry about that. All right, Patrick.
Ready?
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
You look well.
Thank
Good.
you.
I'm good.
Nice to see you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, pleased to be here. My name is Patrick McKenna, and I'm honored to be the Director of the Missouri Department of Transportation. With me here today is Brenda Morris, our Chief Financial Officer. I do have prepared testimony for the record. I won't go through that in detail. I know you're pressed for time, but I did want to highlight a couple items. Number one, safety in Missouri. We are down in fatalities by about 6% year over year, but that still is almost 3 people a day losing their lives on Missouri roadways. And we are not satisfied with this. It's a national issue. And I will say that the single largest increase that we've had in the last couple of years is with motorcycle fatalities. And that follows the repeal of the motorcycle helmet law. And we're concerned about that, trying to get the word out for people, even if it's not a requirement that they use those helmets. Safety within the department is a huge priority as well. Many members may not realize, but over the 100-year history at MoDOT, we've actually lost in the service to Missourians 139 of our employees. And that is an ultimate sacrifice that's been paid by family members in the department and in our organization. And I think it's just important to recognize that the work that is being done has risks to it. We try to mitigate and minimize those as best we can. And we continue to work to improve safety across the board with technology and other actions. We do have challenges with some of our customer service issues across the board. We recognize that. We actually monitor it and we survey our customers. We're down over the last several years by about 10%, so at about a 72% versus about 83%. And really the parallel that we have here is that since 2018, we actually paid last year about 1.8 million fewer labor hours than we did in 2018. That's a result of turnover that we've discussed before this committee in the past. I am pleased to say that I think we've hit the low point there, and we're starting to build back. A good example is just this last month. We brought in 81 people into the department as new employees. Now, unfortunately, 61 left through retirements and other means, but a net inflow and having that pretty consistently over the last 6 or 8 months is a result of the work this committee's done, the General Assembly, the governor, and the commission over the last couple of years. So we really do appreciate that work. It's making a difference, and we need to continue down that path. If you compare our service level to back in 2000, a lot of people will say, well, 30 years ago you did this or you did that, and really that's correct. If you go back to 2005 and 6 and compare the labor hours that we paid for compared to last year, we're 5.5 million labor hours below that. So there's been a significant reduction in force and reduction in availability. That does have an impact on service. We're trying to make up for it wherever we can, but we do have a terrific workforce that's doing the best they can every day with the resources they have available. And I just wanted to give a quick update on Interstate 70. I'm pleased to report that just last week, the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission approved a best value contract for the first contract on I-70. That's literally from the point of the law being signed in August to putting a contract out on an interstate 6 months. That typically takes a state DOT anywhere in the country 2 to 3 years. 6 months. One of the people most responsible for that, two of the people, Ed Hassinger and Eric Schrader, because they picked the right project. They incorporated the interchange work and the environmental work that was already being done in Columbia at 70 and 63 and Kingdom City at 54. So a $420 million project is underway, a $405 million contract with an external vendor. We're close to signing that contract, but those shovels are going to be in the ground within a couple months. So we're very pleased with that progress, and appreciate very much this committee's work, particularly the chairman's work to secure that incredible resource. With that, I think I'll turn it over to Brenda Morris, and we'll get into the new decision items, and happy to answer any questions as we go.
Thank you, Director McKenna. Any questions from the committee for the director before we jump into the budget book? Does not appear so. Brenda, whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Great. We'll start on page 19. This is the governor's recommended pay plan. Next page is page 43. The department requested $359 million. The governor recommended $316 million. These are all the state road fund increases. I will very quickly go through the individual items that make up this, starting on page 44. The department requested $11.9 million of personal services and related fringe benefits to continue implementing the market plan and provide tenure-based increases. The governor did not recommend this. The department included $1.3 million of administration, personal services, and related fringe benefits for 9 additional full-time equivalents. 2 of those were in the Audits and Investigations Division to comply with the International Fuel Tax Association and International Registration Plan audit requirements and provide adequate technical support. 4 of the FTEs were requested for the Financial Services Division because of increased workload and succession planning. 3 of the FTEs are for the Human Resources Division related to workload and succession planning. The governor did not recommend it. The increase includes $2.5 million of safety and operations personal service and related fringe benefits for an additional 18 positions and interns. 5 of those interns are requested for the Safety and Emergency Management Division to perform training, safety audits, hazard analysis and process workers' compensation, fleet and general liability claims. 2 of those positions are for the Maintenance Division to update training materials and coordinate training. 3 of the FTEs are requested for Safety and Emergency Management Division to update and develop training materials for our new field professionals. 8 of the FTEs are requested for the Highway Safety and Traffic Division to establish regional Missouri coalitions for roadway safety in the districts. The governor did not recommend this. The department included $22.6 million of safety and operation personal services and related benefits needed for 249 additional positions. 225 of those are maintenance positions to help improve customer, to improve in those things that customers expect, such as litter pickup, deer removal, those types of things. 24 of the positions are for equipment technicians needed to maintain the 3,000 non-fleet pieces of equipment and the 5,000 pieces of fleet equipment.
Hey, Brenda, you mentioned deer removal.
Yes.
The Conservation Department doesn't maybe partner with us on the removal of their cervids?
We work with them to establish locations where we
can dump the carcasses.
Yeah. So, but primarily if they're on the road, it falls on.
It's funny because if I hit them with my truck, I own them. Conservation Department's like, no, not my deal.
If you have a valid permit, you're welcome
Yeah,
to
right.
it.
Then I can take it home. Yeah, in season, right? If not, they're probably going to write me a ticket. All right, thank you. Sorry.
Sure.
The governor did not recommend that. The increase includes $3.9 million of personal services and related fringe benefits, is requested for 25 positions for the Improve I-70 program. The governor recommended 22 of the positions, all in program delivery. The increase also included 3 administrative positions that were not, the governor did not recommend. The increase includes $6.3 million of program delivery personnel services and related fringe benefits for an additional 44 positions due to the increased size of the construction program. The governor recommended 18 of those positions. The increase includes $1.5 million for medical and life fringe benefits for active employees and retirees due to rising medical costs. The governor moved this item to page 145 in a different expansion, and there was a small increase of $20,000 that he did not recommend. The increase includes $11 million for various roadside contracts to mow, sweep, remove litter, etc. The governor did recommend this. The increase includes $277 million for program delivery due to an increase in contractor payments, consultant design work, and right-of-way purchases. The governor recommended this. $9 million for research contracts for the local technical assistance program and pooled funds. The governor recommended this. $2 million for consultant to update the federally required long-range transportation plan that provides information for asset management and enhances safety and economic development for Missouri. The governor recommended this. $1.9 million for roadway data collection items such as the functionality enhancements to the automatic road analyzer van or the ARAN van, survey equipment. The governor did recommend this. $2.5 million for way station improvements, which includes addition of acceleration and deceleration lanes at westbound St. Clair on I-44 and carryover funding to complete fiscal year 2024 projects. The governor recommended this. $6.3 million for rest area improvements to address American with Disabilities Act needs and to add truck parking. The governor recommended this. The next new decision item is on page 73. The department requested $418,000. The governor did not recommend this. This is the expansion item to continue to implement the market-based compensation plan for the other funds. The next page is page 85. The department requested $40,000. The governor recommended the same. This expansion item is for some additional temporary part-time positions that are needed due to the additional federal funding that has been received in highway safety. The next page is page 93. The department requested $1 million. The governor did not recommend this item. This expansion item is for additional 5 full-time positions to support the aviation section. Funding for aviation has increased from $15 million and will be $100 million in fiscal year 25. Because of the increase in funding, these additional staff are needed to administer the program. Next page is page 103, or no, excuse me, next page is 145. The department requested $16,500. The governor recommended $1.5 million. This is where that additional amount got transferred to this item. This is for the increase in medical and life insurance due to rising costs. Next page is page 277. The The department requested 20 million. The governor recommended the same. This is for the I-44 environmental study. This was one-time funding for fiscal year 24 and essentially reappropriating those monies. The next page is page 287. The department included 12 million. The governor recommended the same. This is the expansion for roadway maintenance on the I-55 outer service road connection in Jefferson County. Next page is page 365. The department requested 3.25 million. The governor recommended the same. This is for additional federal grant funding for safety behavioral programs. Next page is page 421. The department requested 15 million. The governor recommended the same. This appropriation allows MoDOT to issue refunds for taxes or fees to, related to motor carriers that was deposited in the State Highways and Transportation Department Fund. So for motor carriers, they pay taxes based upon where they drive the miles. So this allows us to refund monies to other jurisdictions, just like they would refund monies to us if the miles are driven in Missouri. Because of the increase related to Senate Bill 262, this is going up. Next page is 451. The department requested 400,000. The governor recommended the same. This expansion item is to pay for consultant services due to the increase in funding multimodal has seen in recent years. The next page is page 537. The department requested 9 million. The governor recommended the same. This expansion item is needed to help with our federal transit programs because of supply chain issues, which are improving. Vehicles were ordered in one year and getting delivered in another, and so we're having more vehicles delivered in 1 year than typically would happen. So this will help with that. Next page is page 543. The department requested 500,000. The governor recommended the same. This expansion item is requested to allow MoDOT to draw down an earmark grant funding that was awarded to Oates Transit Bus. It was appropriated for fiscal year 24, so this is a reappro. Next page is page 563. The department requested 6 million. This for from GR for METAP providers to be able to use this money to match federal funds. The governor did not recommend this here, but moved it to House Bill 20. Next page is page 591. The governor the department requested 1.5 million. The governor recommended the same. This is an increase for the state match for Amtrak to keep 2 trains a day. The next page is page 611. The department requested $10,000. The governor recommended the same. This is funding from the State Transportation Fund to be passed on to communities that have passenger rail stations to help them maintain and improve those rail stations. Next page is page 629. The department requested 60 million of GR. The governor recommended 50 million. The 50 million is the railroad grade crossing hazard item that was first appropriated for fiscal year 24. This is the reappro of that amount. The difference of 10 million was monies to be able to use to match federal funds.
Senator Black.
Thank you, Senator. I just wanted to make a quick comment, really thanking MoDOT, as at least a few people know, several of those upgrades will be in the northwest part of the state where I represent. And another thing, the fact that in this case, it's something to brag about, you working with local people to listen to local options. I don't know whether those things will actually change, from the original plan, but the fact that you made people in my district feel good, I hope more than feel good, that you did it for the right reason, MoDOT did, to work with them and look at different ideas that they might have that they don't want to express in a big meeting, but yet they'll come. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for trying to make these upgrades.
Thank you, Senator.
Next page is page 635. The department requested $38 million. The governor did not recommend this item. This is an expansion item for the state match for the Federal Railroad Administration's Corridor Identification Program to extend Amtrak passenger rail service in the state. The federal portion is on a later new decision item. The next page, the next page is 653. The department requested $10.55 million. The governor recommended the same. This expansion item is for automobile parking at the new Cape Girardeau Airport Passenger Terminal, as well as design and construction services at Rosecrans Memorial Airport. This was one-time funding for fiscal year '24, so a reappropriate of those monies. The next page is page 671. The department requested $27.3 million. The governor recommended the same. This expansion item is for additional federal funding for the aviation program. The next new decision item is on page 677. The department requested $9 million. The governor recommended the same. However, we no longer need this item because the funding will go directly to the airport. Next page is page 683. The department requested $3.4 million. The governor recommended the same. This is a requested expansion item for an earmark. It was appropriated in '24, so this is essentially a reappro. Next page is page 689. The governor recommended $8.8 million, or the department requested $8.8 million. The governor recommended the same. Again, this is another earmark. And again, it was appropriated in '24, and this is a reappro. Next page is page 695. The department requested $11.6 million. The governor recommended the same. This is the general revenue that would typically get appropriated for CI. We're asking it to be transferred into the newly created Waterways and Port Trust Fund in accordance with the statute that was passed last session. Then the actual expenditures, we'll have a new decision item for the actual expenditures out of that fund, which the next page is page 713. This is the spending authority. The department requested $20 million. The governor recommended the same. The reason this is a higher amount than the transfer is that federal funds and donations can also be deposited into this fund, so potentially would have higher spending authority than just the GR transfer. Next page is page 719. The governor recommended $938,000, or the department requested $938,000. The governor recommended the same. This is being requested for the multi-year Corps of Engineer Lower Missouri River Navigation Study. This is the matching funds for that. So this should be the final year for this. The next page is page 725. The department requested $24.9 million. The governor recommended the same. This is for the Jefferson County Port Authority. The original appropriation was $25 million, and they are slowly spending that money. So next page is page 743. The department requested $86 million. The governor recommended $10 million. So this is the $76 million for the expansion of the passenger rail service. This is the federal funds that went with the match that I mentioned earlier. The remaining $10 million is for federal grant funding, which was appropriated as one-time funding for fiscal year 2024 related to the Railroad Grade Crossing Safety Hazard Program.
We received two grants for Corridor ID. That's 100% federal money, $500,000 each to study going to Hannibal and St. Joe. In order to even be considered, we had to put the capital funding into our budget request back in the fall. You know, there's a long way to go before we end up in this capital expansion, and I think there are a lot of conversations to be had before we go down that path.
And that concludes our new decision items.
Appreciate the presentation. Any questions from the committee? Does not appear so.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Director. That will conclude our hearing for this morning. Senator May, glad you could join us. Tomorrow morning, I think we've got DED and the General Assembly, and we're going to, instead of our normal 8:30 time, I think we're going to amend that hearing notice and have it at about 9 o'clock. Yes? Okay. So 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, DED and the General Assembly. Thanks.
Thank you.
Things are going good. Thank you.